Hi everyone. We're in the waxing gibbous stage of the moon leading up to the full moon on March 3rd. By the time this video is published, we'll probably be in the full moon. And as I was preparing to make this video, I was having some hesitation because right now in the world, there's a lot of events, there's a lot of news that is super loud and seems super important. And I had the thought of making a video about the moon. Does that even make sense right now? And then I realized that it makes even more sense than ever because our connection to the natural cycles, our understanding of the cycles and their consistent nature and how they mirror the cycles of our body, the cycles of the moon, the sun, the seasons, they help us maintain our inner stability. They help fortify us in times of distress, right? In times of chaos or the unknown or new things happening. And I think it's more important than ever to not forget. And I was noticing the tendency to let the loudest thing in the room sort of take all of my attention and allow myself to focus the majority of my attention on that thing and then begin to decide that nature's presence in my life go into the background and become somehow less important. And I said, well, no, maybe I could choose not to do that. Maybe I could choose to stay steady in my cycle awareness and lean on that and use that as a tool to stay balanced and stay connected to a ground of consistency and calm and inner space that is going to give me and maybe all of us more resourcing to be able to stay centered and calm as we move through these times. So I'm here with the moon video. Now on February 18th, we had the second new moon of the year, which was the Lunar New Year, Chinese New Year, and that started the year of the fire horse in Chinese astrology. And that wasn't just any new moon, it was a new moon solar eclipse. So that rebirth point of the Lunar New Year was amplified by that eclipse energy. And we went from the year of the wood snake into the year of the fire horse. So we are now fully in the year of the fire horse. And we're now approaching the first full moon of the year, which will also be an eclipse, a total lunar eclipse. Astrologers call this eclipse season. There's usually two eclipses back to back, one on a new moon and one on a full moon. And during this eclipse season, everything is heightened. So we've been in this heightened state, this heightened energy, and we are continuing to go through all these new beginnings. As we talked about in previous videos, since the height of the yin energy of the year on the winter solstice, northern hemisphere, we've been going through a series of new beginnings and rebirths, leading up to the March equinox, which will be the tipping point of the year, going from predominantly yin energy to a predominantly yang energy that will continue through the summer until fall. So between the winter solstice and the spring equinox, there are multiple restart points. So the first restart point is that human created, but still potent because it's all in our consciousness, the January 1 calendar New Year. That's the first restart point. And then we have the Lunar New Year, which is the second new moon, which was that last new moon that we just had, February 18th. And then we'll have the spring equinox on March 20th. Which will be sort of the final reset point, which is the spring start, like the rebirth of spring, but it's also the start of the astrological year. It's the rebirth of the astrological year in Aries. Now, this year, in addition to all of that happening, we have multiple restarts happening between this Lunar New Year and the March equinox that relate to planets hitting 0 degrees of Aries, which again is the start of the astrological year. And especially when the outer planets, which move very slowly, come to that 0 point of Aries, it's significant. And we have multiple planets doing that right now. So there's an amplified rebirth, renewal. On top of that, this is a numerological universal 1 year, which is the start of a new 9-year cycle. So lots of renewal, rebirth energy happening now. So let's look at this full moon eclipse that we're in right now, March 3rd. So there's this thing called the nodes of the moon. There's a north node and a south node of the moon, and it's an astrological point that's calculated. And eclipses happen when the moon is on those nodes. So the new moon eclipse that happened on February 18th was on the north node of the moon. And north node eclipses are aligned to the energy of newness, of going into something new. The north node is what we are becoming. And this full moon eclipse that's happening on March 3rd is a south node eclipse. They work like that. They come in pairs, first one then the other. And a south node eclipse is more about what we are completing, what we are leaving behind, what we've already done and learned and known, and what's time to move on from. So as a theme for this full moon, even though, as with all full moons, it is the height of yang energy of the moon, right? The moon's at its brightest, its fullest, its outward expression. Things are illuminated, more things are revealed. Nothing of the moon is hidden. We can see all of it because the sun is shining on the full face of it that's facing toward Earth. So even though we're in the highest yang expression, it's also a theme here with the eclipse in the south node is it's a time of completion, putting attention on or setting intentions for what is completing and allowing those completions to happen. What is just naturally ready to let go right now? And how can I set my intention and my energy to allow things that are done to be released? So at this time, there's just an invitation to allow the letting go to happen, allow the completion to happen, and being aware of not holding on unnecessarily to things that are ripe and ready to fall off the tree and done. So let's look ahead, because this March equinox, this spring equinox, is coming up pretty quick. It's just in a couple weeks, March 20th. And the next new moon is just 2 days before, on March 18th. So kind of similar to where we were at the winter solstice, if you recall. The winter solstice in December, I think it was 36 hours away from the new moon. So we're in a similar energy with this equinox of spring. It's just going to be 2 days away from a new moon. So we have like a double rebirth energy happening at that point. So between now and then, we are completing the yin-dominant phase of the solar cycle. So from fall equinox to spring equinox in the northern hemisphere, from September to March, we are in a yin-dominant phase of the year. Half the year is yin-dominated and half the year is yang-dominated. And after we cross that spring solstice, we will be now in a yang-dominant phase of the year. And when we get there, it's like full steam ahead. It's like outward action, taking the actions to put your intentions into reality. That's what we are called to do at that time when yang is becoming dominant. But we're not there yet. We have still a few more weeks. So this is the time to finish your dreaming. Here's another chance, right? And we're fully awake now. The light is coming back. We are no longer in deep winter where we just want to go inward and things are more mysterious and underground and sort of like cooking and germinating underground. We are closer now to the yang energy, and we're getting more illumination, we're getting more understanding of what it all means that happened through the winter. So if January 1st was way too dark and cold for you to be digging into setting your intentions, you had that second chance for Lunar New Year, but there is still time now before the spring equinox to really dream in, to plant some more seeds. One way to do this without a lot of pressure is just to set aside some time to allow yourself to daydream. Ask yourself a question. If I could have a dream with no limits, what would it be? We're in this time of expansion and there's a lot of newness coming in. Things are changing very quickly. We're expecting the next year or two to really be unprecedented changes, unprecedented possibilities. So as we are dreaming in or allowing our daydreams to come to the surface, being careful not to limit them. Being careful not to say, oh, that didn't work before, so it's not going to work again. Or being careful to sort of keep them in a safe, known box. But allowing your heart to really come online and be like, what do you really desire? Like, what would bring joy? How can you just allow your daydreams to come to be really full and big without putting a cap on them of reality? Because reality is changing. Reality is changing really quickly. To help us orient ourselves to where we are in the cycles, I'll end on this point, this idea about celebration. So we have come through the darkness of the winter solstice. We've had the calendar new year, we've had the lunar new year, and now we're going into the astrological new year, or the spring equinox. And we are coming out of winter into spring, into the seasonal rebirth. And many ancient calendars started the year in March with the spring renewal. I feel like this is a great time to pause and celebrate. Celebrate after Chinese New Year. We made it through the winter. Right? We made it through the deep darkness. Some cultures celebrate on May Day, right? There's a May Day celebration of spring and like the promise of summer. I would suggest having a little micro celebration right now, which is also kind of countercultural right now because, like I said, there's a lot happening. There's a lot of news in the world that is difficult and not necessarily something that's making us feel like celebrating. But we are in the rebirth phase of the cycle. The Earth is continuing to orbit the sun. The moon is continuing to orbit the Earth in its cyclical pattern that supports us and nurtures us. And we are coming into full expression of spring. And we can celebrate that and orient our bodies, give our bodies that opportunity to regulate with the seasons and the cycles and find that stability, find that reconnection to our natural states of being so that we can claim that natural state of constant renewal, constant death and rebirth, constant sun rising every morning, moon changing its phases every month. This is a gift of life on the planet Earth, these cycles that support us and accompany us and remind us of stability and of how we change and naturally ebb and flow and grow and create. So let's celebrate our creative nature, our cyclical creative nature. Happy full moon.